Hey there, and welcome to this screencast on MODx Revolution. My name is Mary, and these screencasts are brought to you by the Coding Pad. If you want to see more video tutorials on MODx Revolution and MODx Evolution, please visit modxvideotutorials.com. So let's jump in. We're continuing with our beginner series where we've been looking at the basics of working with MODx Revolution. And we've looked at, if you visit modxvideotutorials.com, you will see other videos in the series. We've looked at how to install MODx Revolution. We've looked at, the backend manager and just different parts, on working with MODx Revolution, package management, system settings, and things like that. So we're picking up from there, and today we're going to venture further into building our site, and we're going to look at templates. Right, so let's jump in. This is our sandbox site that we've been working on. It's sitting in my local development environment here on MAMP, and what we have is just the very basic install. We've gone in, we've set a few system settings and things like that, but other than that, not much else going on. If we look at our resources here, if I go to home, which is the only resource that we have, you can see that it's a completely blank resource. All it has is a title, nothing in the content. So we have a pretty clean install here. If I preview that, you can see that it's a completely blank page. So as I said, what we're going to look at in this installment is templates and what templates are. Now, if you've worked with websites before, if you've worked with, say, WordPress or Drupal or any other content management system, or maybe even rolled your own, you have hopefully have a pretty fair idea of what a template is. And what a template is the presentation part of your web project. It's the front facing, what your visitors will see. It's what dictates the layout and arranges the content on your site. It's the presentation aspect, or to use a slightly older term, it's the skin of your website. And there are many templates out there. For example, just go back and look at this. It's a simple template, has a header, all right? So the header of the web, the big title comes up here. There's a navigation system right there that's styled in a particular way. When I hover, you can see, there's a bit of a background that comes on. There's an image banner there. If we scroll down, there's sidebars that have some ads at the moment and different things there. And the main content sort of comes in this area. So that's sort of our layout. That's our template. It's styled in a particular way. And that's the template for this site. And there are many, many templates out there, many different templates. Some are free, some are premium. There's almost as many templates as there are websites. So that's the idea of what a template is. Now in MODx, a template is simply HTML code with MODx template tags embedded in the code to bring in the dynamic bits and pieces. If that sounds a bit like gibberish, it will make sense as we go along. Now, my hope and sort of the prerequisite to following this screencast is that you know the basics of HTML, the basics of CSS, and you sort of have a fair idea of what that is. So let's look at this page again. You can see that it's a plain, simple page. However, if I view source, which is one quick way of looking at what the underlying HTML code on a page is, you can see that there's some HTML. The page looks blank, but there is some HTML underlying it, and that's the HTML. Now we're going to go back here to our sandbox, and if we go to elements, and under templates, usually it will be folded, closed. If you just click on that little triangle there, and then open it up, and that shows you the list of templates. And right now there's only one template known as the base template. Now currently, the base template is what ships with your standard install of MODx Revolution. So let's open that up and look at it. And if you look at that code there, you can see that it's simple, plain HTML. Right? You have your opening HTML tag and your closing HTML tag. You have a head tag, closing head, opening body, closing body. All right. So this is sort of your basic layout of HTML. There's no doc type declaration or anything like that. It's just simple, just HTML tags. And if you compare this with the view source, you can see opening HTML, closing HTML, opening body, closing body, opening head, closing head, and then you have your title and your base tag, which again are right here. But then if you look at this, you see this part here. And that part, if you know HTML, you know that that's not like any HTML you've ever seen. And that's because these are the MODx specific tags. These are the MODx specific tags that bring in the dynamic parts of your system, the dynamic components of your system, and bring them to the front and add them to your look, the look of your site, to display your dynamic content. Okay, so how do we know what these tags are? If you've watched a couple of screencasts back, I did a screencast on system settings, then some of these might look familiar to you. But there's a quick way to find out what the different template tags are. And this is what makes templating MODx really simple. If we go to the MODx website, the MODx documentation website, that's rtfm.modx.com, you brought to this page as your main page, and we're going to go to MODx Revolution. And now we're looking at just the MODx Revolution specific documentation, making sites with MODx and tag syntax. All right, so let's look at this. This gives you a list of the tag format, the tag syntax for MODx. And there's evolution and revolution. So these are the elements, what the syntax is for evolution, what the syntax is for revolution. We're working with revolution, so we're going to concentrate on this column here. All right, so for resource fields, that's the syntax. So you have your opening double braces there, closing double braces, and then you have an asterisk and the name of the field. And for system settings, and I'm just looking at these two specific ones because they're the ones we're going to really deal with in this particular screencast. For system settings, you have the opening, the closing, and then you have 2+ symbols and the system setting. All right, so let's go back and compare this syntax to what we have in the base template. So we have this syntax here, so that tells you that that's a system setting from the syntax. It's the opening and closing braces, and then ++ site name, site underscore name, and then dash page title with an asterisk. So that's from the documentation here, you can see that that's a resource field. Now, and then we have here site URL, so that's another system setting. And these system settings, if you watched that previous screencast about changing your system settings, these are the global settings that apply to the entire website. Okay, and then we have another resource field tag here, and that's for the content. So now let's compare. So if we now go back with that understanding of the tag syntax, if we look at commonly used template tags, there's a long list of them here, all right? And we'll come back and look at that. Excuse me. If we look at, if we go back and we compare this now to this, you can see that here where you have title and then site name, page title, site name here is replaced by My Revo Sandbox, and page title is replaced by home. And if we go back and look at why that is, if you recall when we created our site, if you look at system settings, when we created our site and we looked at system settings, we came here and under filter by area, under site, we set a site name. Somewhere down here, we set a site name and said our site name should be My Revo Sandbox. And that's what's showing up here. My Revo Sandbox is being passed in for site name. And if we go back to our resource and we open it, here under title we have home, okay, and that's what's being parsed and put here for page title. So what you simply have, and I think you're starting to get the idea if you're not familiar with templating MODx, what you simply have is you just put in the relevant tags, and the MODx parser goes in before rendering the page and pulls the dynamic parts that correspond, the dynamic values of those fields or those system settings, and plops them in place of the tags, all right? And that's the same thing with the base href. It's just your site URL. So it grabs the site URL. In my case, it's, HTTP localhost/Revo Sandbox, might be something different for you, and it plops it in right there. So that's the basics. And if you look here, let's go back and look at our template in just a minute. We'll see that here you have a content field, all right? And if you look at our home page, that content tag represents this resource content area here, which is blank. And so when we view source here, that area is completely blank. There's nothing, and so it's replaced with just an empty space. All All right, so we can close this for now. Excuse me, have a bit of a cough. And now we go back and we look at these commonly used template tags. And these are the default resource content field tags. They're good to know. You can always keep this page open as you're working with your templates. And over time, you sort of start to know what they are and you don't necessarily need to refer to them all the time. And the other cool thing is when you open a resource for editing, if you hover over the field name, it gives you the tag syntax. And that's a really cool little shortcut thing to also know. So you have here page title, long title, description, resource alias, and so on and so forth. So let's look at our template again here just for a minute. And just go over it just briefly. Simple HTML code, and you put in MODx tags to pull in the dynamic bits and pieces. That's the basics of what a simple MODx template is. So let's make a few changes just so that we can be sure we've understood how templates work. And then as we continue in the next and subsequent screencasts, we're going to actually work with, slightly more complicated templates. This is very simple, very basic. As you can see, there's no CSS, there's no JavaScript. It's just a plain, simple HTML template. Your templates generally will probably be a bit more complex than this, but this is a good starting point. All right, so if you look at the title bar here of our page, again, it's the same thing, site name, page title. So site name, My Revo Sandbox, page title, home. Why don't we manipulate this a bit? And we'll also add a few other things in here and see, test what we've learned, test what we've discussed about templates. So quickly, we're going to go to system settings. I expect that you're familiar with this now from the previous screencast that I did on system settings, and should be able to rush through this and maybe even faster than I'm doing it. So let's go down here. Let's make a small change, or let's just call this our Revo Sandbox. Yeah, because it's our Revo Sandbox. It's not just mine. It's ours. We're sharing it. And so let's call it our Revo Sandbox. Now, if I come here and I do a quick refresh, you see that the title bar has changed and we now have our Revo Sandbox. Okay, it's quick. Let's make another change. Let's go into the template real quick here. And let's add a few more things, and then we'll go in and we'll put some content and we'll see. So here we have content. How about if I do an H1 tag, and let's close that out, H1. And in here I'm going to put my page title. I want it to appear at the top of the page, just before the content. And here I'm going to say H2 main content. And you'll see in a minute why I'm doing this. It's just to make things a bit more clear. So we'll do that. And then in here, I'm going to put another H2 tag. And I'm going to say summary H2. And here, let's put the description field, and you'll see what that is in a minute. So let's dump the contents of the description field there. And how about we make this H3s actually. Sorry, I'm making this up as I go, just sort of playing around, having a place so that you can see what happens here. Okay, so that's that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save my template, and then let's refresh and see what we have now. So we have home, summary, main content. And these are simply from our template, page title in H1 tags, and that's that, page title, which is home. And then summary, which I've just typed in there, summary and main content, which are in H2 tags, and that's showing up there, summary, main content. Actually, I think I made that H3. Yep, that's fine. So now, let's see what the impact of this is. And in H2 tags here, I'm going to put one more thing. I'm just going to put my long title there. All right, and we'll save that. And refresh. And there shouldn't really be any change because we actually don't have a long title. So let's now go into our resource. And let's put some content into those fields and then see that they show up in in this here. So let's change here. Let's just say, welcome to our Revo sandbox. Long title, the place where we play with MODx Revolution. Description, this website is a fun place to learn MODx, and it simply rocks my world. And then here we'll put, this is the main content of our MODx Revolution sandbox site. We like to have fun with MODx, and occasionally, don't know if I spelled that right, I eat ice cream when working with MODx. Yeah, that's good. So we'll save that. I think that's all right. We've put content in those fields. And remember, and look at that, we've changed our title to Welcome to our Revo Sandbox, and we're going to see this change reflected in 2 places. We should see this change reflected in 2 places. So if I refresh now, we have Welcome to our Revo Sandbox. So that's the title. So let's go back and look at our template. Just compare them. And again, these are just the very plain basics, and I'm just having a play so that you can see templates in action. You can see editing templates in action. So, okay, we expect that starting from the top, coming down, we expect a site name and a page title in the title bar. So we have a site name, our Revo Sandbox, and page title, Welcome to our Revo Sandbox, because we've changed it from home to Welcome to our Revo Sandbox, and that is rightfully displayed in the title. That change is reflected there. Coming down, nothing's changed there with the base href, that's fine. Then we have an h1 tag. We have page title inside h1 tags, and that's our page title, Welcome to our Revo Sandbox, okay? And then we have long title in h2 tags, the place where we play with MODx Revolution. That's our long title that we just typed in. And then we have h2 tag saying summary, and then whatever is in the description field. So summary, this website is a fun place to learn MODx Revolution, simply rocks my world, and that's what we put into that description field. And then main content, h3 tags, and then the content, whatever is in the content field. And we have main content. This is the main content for our MODx Revolution sandbox site. We like to have fun with MODx, and occasionally I eat ice cream, which is probably why I'm coughing. So there we go. So that's our simple template, and you can see the results reflected. And again, here, it's very basic. There's no styling. We're just sort of at the mercy of whatever this particular browser decides to render for H1 and H2 tags and all that good stuff. But hopefully this gives you sort of a starting idea of, if you're not familiar with MODx templates at all, a starting idea of just how simple templating MODx Revolution is. All you need to do, for the most part, the basic part is know your tag syntax and know your commonly used tags. And if you don't know them, you can cheat by just opening the resource for editing and looking at what the names are. Some of them aren't as straightforward as you might think, and we'll probably run into that as we continue templating and as we go into more complex templates. And of course, this is just for the basic stuff. There's a bit more complexity when you start doing navigation or things like that. And we're going to look at that as we go along in these screencasts. But this sort of gives you a basic overview of how to work with templates in MODx Revolution. Now, just a quick little note for you. Right now, I'm playing with the base template and editing it. If at this moment I was to upgrade my Revolution install, any changes I've made in here will be completely wiped out and replaced again by the base template. I believe that that's what happens. And this comes, because the base template is what ships with MODx Revolution. So any changes I make will probably be overwritten. So if you're going to be using the base template to build your template, what I recommend that you do is you create a new template and copy the code into it and give it a unique name. And that way, when you upgrade Revolution, your template files, your template code will not be overwritten. So that's just a little mention there for you to keep in mind. I'm just sort of experimenting and playing around. This is not actually going to be my template. I was just using this to demonstrate the basics of working with templates. So I hope that that makes a bit more sense, and it will continue to make sense as we work further and further and learn more about MODx Revolution. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, anything you want to discuss, I encourage you to go to modxvideotutorials.com, go to forum, create a free account, and it might take a day or two because the accounts have to be, you have to activate it. actually, it should be immediate. You should get an email and activate your account, and ask away, ask any questions you may have in the different sections, and I look forward to responding to your questions either on this forum or on YouTube or wherever else out there. You might leave a comment when you find this screencast, but the quickest way to get a comment is actually to come to the forums because I check them frequently. So thanks again, and for more screencasts and more tutorials, don't forget to visit modxvideotutorials.com and codingpad.maryspad.com. See you at the next screencast.